Imagine being a slave or being a colonized people, and then finally your colonizer or your slave master gives you freedom to set yourself free economically, environmentally, financially, and politically, socially. You have all that freedom, and you choose not to use it. Instead, you choose to include that slave owner to come and work with you. What makes you think this slave owner is going to look at you as an equal, you being his former slave? He's not. So I was asking myself, how come this GNU is designed like that? Kanti, Advocate Sikhakhane on an interview with Season of Watch is going to explain it that this current GNU we see right now is just a result of slaves seeking validation from their former slave owners. Take a listen at how he explains it.
You know, it's a very painful moment. There have been moments when I watched Parliament and watching comrades I've worked with clap and look like slave children happy at seeing a madam. And it looked very painful. But that's just one way of looking at it. What I think, this is one of those most precarious moments in history of a country. And that is why there are so many people trying to seize this moment. But it's a repetition of how we got here in the first place. And so these moments in the struggle in South Africa keep repeating themselves. 1955, we are told it was the people who drafted this document. But of course, sometimes, it was a few people, largely white, writing for the Freedom Charter. And then these moments keep happening where an important political moment, crossroad, happens. And those who are in power, capital in particular, always seize that moment because the oppressed, their guards are down and they're tired. They want a solution out of their misery. But that solution never comes because those who are in power always seize that moment. And that's where we are. So what you see in this GNU, it's painful, but it's not surprising. Because I think the ANC itself, and just generally how the struggle has been run, has been an ally of coloniality in many ways. And it has shifted to the left sometimes at particular periods. But there's a character of it that remains. And that character drove it to write the Freedom Charter. That character drove the ANC to opt for the political settlement that we have. And I think that political settlement is a repetition of what's happening now. And it's not always conscious. And I think people who are involved in this are different elements of what I call conscious and unconscious counter-revolution. Some will tell you they think they're sophisticated. But in the end, what we are seeing happening is a continued survival, protection of white rule over indigenous people. And it's that moment now. And the ANC, yet again, is not disappointing in aligning itself with forces of coloniality. There were other options. But because enslaved people, every time they want to act in their own favor, their own interest, what occupies their mind is how to please the white master. And I think it has become second nature when we find a political solution. Our first question is not what do the masses that are oppressed want? Will white people embrace us when we do this? And that question that slaves ask all the time is what I think causes the trauma. Is the trauma of struggling people. And it affects the project of national liberation. And that's how I see these moments. This moment itself. Look at who's interested. It's the foundations. It's because people want to re-theorize this moment in order to ensure the continued survival of white rule from which they benefit financially, even if they are black and all. But this is a moment when people are seizing. They are seizing this moment in order to control the future of our children, and yet again to trade it for 30 pieces of silver on the table.